links or a chain of support. So like Faye might not necessarily need to be directly in touch with Marek, for instance, but she might give us some ideas and some support to create a funding bid, and then that might enable us to do something with Marek. Is that fair?
I think so, yeah. Well, that was because I was kind of working on this idea of network, and part of our initial goal was that we bring us all together and strengthen the Sheffield music scene. Was a bit of a, idealist idea, and partly I didn't think it would actually work because the groups are so different in what they're trying to do. But I think it has happened. We have made contacts and we have led each other, especially in your group. It's made this new project that you're doing is a really clear example of it.
We know how to do it. I think there's a lot of collective experience, collective knowledge, democratic process, and it's not just time that the project has given us. It's also kind of pockets of kind of opportunity. It's opportunities to make comparisons. I mean, when I had a little minute to step back at the Connected Communities thing in Cardiff and just look at what the other Connected Communities organisations, community groups have been producing and stuff like that, there were huge differences and a lot of differences in mindset of the odd academics that I managed to talk to. So from that point of view, back to your question about whether you feel like a researcher as a community partner, I don't feel like a researcher, but I feel like kind of 100% engaged with this process. I think as long as we're creating or we're enabling creativity, then it provokes more thinking.
You are a researcher. That's it. But the thing that I was going to say a minute ago is that at the beginning of this project, I kept having these massive grey areas, like I was on the edge of a complete void, and I kept thinking, like, we sat down that day, didn't we, the three of us, and wrote all these methods out, who we were going to interview and how we were going to document it. It turned into this massive thing. I was like, we need to work it out on lists and people and categorisation. Well, anyway, just kept having penny drop moments that kind of made it all make a bit more sense, and incrementally it's making sense. And I had one just recently where this idea of research and doing research and what is research, and these are methods that we just don't know. And the point of this is about us. We're researching ourselves. We're trawling through the insides of our heads. So you've got the answers in there. The point is that we're trying to get those answers out into some kind of communicative way, and sometimes you don't even recognise you've done it yourself.
I don't know. I have great difficulty calling it a research thing. I know I have to when I'm doing a press release, or I have to if I'm doing a bid or formal writing or something like that. But it doesn't feel like research. It feels like a kind of an investigative journey, if you want, and a kind of it does feel pioneering, and I think that is really attractive, and it does promise for the future, which I think is also motivating for us to want to continue. And I think also it has helped set up a community of minds and a community of creatives. If we are approached, for example, by some more music service or by another academic institute, we can actually go in with an approach which is...
We're developing expertise, we're learning how to do the thing.
Which is action research, I don't know what you want to call it, it's not really important what you call it at this stage, but I think what we, if we start thinking about the things that we've done, from within each of our co-production groups through to the communal things that we've done as roundup sessions or as co-writing sessions, it should be documentable, and it should be something that could be offered out. I think for the Declaration Creole and the Arts on the Run sessions, they're probably more to do with assimilation and moving on, and because the nature of the sessions have been to do with making new music and writing new lyrics and developing at least new to a wider public new stories, and the co-production work that we've done so far has kind of opened up a really interesting area, and I just feel as though it's kind of a bit like the beginning, really.
Can you sum that up in 3 words? Just like 3 words.
Go on.
You're good at things like
Keep
that.
asking.
Yeah, no.
I'm good at summing up in 3 words. You're joking. I'm interested in assimilation, and I'm interested in progress and futures, and I guess I'm interested in what people bring with them from their past or their heritage and where it takes them in new environments.
Perfect.
And yeah, all right.
I think that's something that
That's more than 3 words.
The whole thing.
When you said the word assimilation, I thought, oh, I think of that word as a really negative thing.
I know.
So,
I don't think of it as negative, but I know
yeah,
that you do.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't have to be negative, but what I associate it with is someone
Yeah.
from another culture coming into a more sort of dominant culture and then having to sort of
play by their rules.
fit
sort of thing.
in, to sort of be accepted
Values,
and
yeah.
pass, as British
but
enough,
if
or
you-
look.
Yeah, I
sort
know what
of-
you mean. And actually, in the sessions,
Yeah.
the opposite happens. It's kind of interesting because actually it's the power of the unknown, what you're not used to, what you haven't heard before, maybe.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, in a lot. No, I'm just saying. For example, it's a lot in a lot of cases. It's probably the British British musicians being assimilated into kind of other cultural strands or other cultural genres, which is kind of interesting. That's what I meant by assimilation. And I also meant assimilation of a whole load of multiple cultural threads or heritage threads that happen in the sessions. That they are assimilated into a new thing.
So Soundpost really as an organisation, it feels like we kind of went across the summer, actually we went across this whole year doing all our various different things. I feel like we've got projects to start thinking about, which is really interesting because actually I found the Fiddle Weekend really labour intensive in a way that I didn't think I would be able to replicate. So I was all ready to kind of go, do you know what, I think I need to take a back seat from events. The thing that I'm really excited about is the idea of a season of something to do with social singing. And in fact, it might be really, I was thinking, again, a little kind of wing moment, but if you've got material, I just think it would be really magical to do some social singing, do a social singing workshop using some of the material that you've collected. And it's got the same kind of resonance as the Full English has, in the way that you go, these songs were collected just there, and I think that's really, for me, having said heritage isn't about place entirely, actually that does have a real resonance. You're getting so much in one package when you get a song, because you're getting people's live kind of living of it, you're getting performances of it, you're getting arrangements, it's just so whole. If we think in terms, and I know we're not thinking in terms of success and failure, but we certainly have had in all of our projects things that have come off and things that haven't quite worked the way. And one of the kind of strings throughout all of them for me is about people on the ground. It's actually about that chain that you're talking about, but it's actually about people. So I think one thing that will come out for me about what you were talking about having some legacy from this in some meeting is actually being brave enough to say, do you know what, I could do that thing, or at least trying it, so looking at ourselves as the resource, not just the people we're there with, but actually going, I could teach that, or I could book you to do that. So I probably wouldn't have had that excitement at the beginning of the project, because I think that comes from the confidence of what your organisation can offer, so which I think has been kind of shaped quite well by this.
That's good.
It's like knowing what you are.
I don't think I've managed to get any photos of people, but when you first put headphones on someone when they've just done a recording and they listen to it, and it's like, wow, we sound amazing. Just the fact of someone else coming in from the outside and maybe from British sort of culture, and saying, this is really worth listening to and this is worth recording, and yeah, it's great that you go and sing at church every week, but actually a lot of people would really love to listen to this music. It's amazing. I think has been. We sort of talked about that a bit, didn't
Write
we?
that down.
There's also a question of function, isn't there? Like music, this kind of music is partly defined by its function, and that's sort of changing the function in a really positive way. But it is changing the function, like you say. Church music and social music happens, it seems, in a vacuum to the outside world. I mean, it doesn't actually. It's got huge application and there's things happening there, but you've actually changed, and it's nice to think of it not as elevating but just changing, isn't it? It's a whole new function. It's different communications and it's different, they're reflecting differently on it than they would, but it's no greater or lesser, it's totally different. It's really good.
I mean, Matt, I wonder if it would be interesting for us to sort of write down or maybe talk about what the different sort of functions were of all this music that we went and recorded, because actually most of it wasn't even sort of performance.
Yeah,
Some
that's
of it was.
right.
Some of it was social, some of it was like religious,
or ritual,
some of it was, so there's like language schools, which we only ended up getting one of those, but that was like transmitting language heritage.
I think a lot of the time I tend to be focused on the projects, but what I've realised is the groups that you create through the projects last longer and they're more generative, but it's how to sustain them as spaces of practice that are really useful. Because I think it's this idea of having the practice and then so doing the improvisation and the practice, so I think that's really, really interesting. But also developing the synergies across the projects. I'm in an education department and I'm often surprised how those kind of ideas, they come out for me from Tim Ingold's work on making all the sort of sensory ethnography field, but actually applying that into education and seeing how that tacit knowledge is, and the situatedness and the place and the stuff you said about where and how. I just think that's really relevant, and yet it hasn't been really, I don't think it's been put together. I mean, I'm not an expert in music education, but I just think that's a fascinating thing that came out of the project.
I think our disciplines stroke genre, they're the place where they're the ideal place to observe that and to do it, because and I think people need it. People want, like, there is a hunger for that. It's almost like austerity breeds this need for something very accessible and very earthy and very tangible and immediate. But it's the things that we can offer, because we're doers, we're not.
Music generally, and certainly
people just want it and they don't.
Traditional music.